Welcome to the Teletrack Navman TMC 2020 live session. This session we'll be talking about creating electronic workflows from on the road to the workshop and into the back office.
Thanks, Shannon. Melissa Strong from Lindsay, Australia. We're based in Brisbane and operate predominantly Australia-wide, the Northern Hemisphere ACT. I currently look after the People, Safety and Culture Department of Lindsay, so we have about 1,300 employees across 35 sites. So in my role, it's from recruitment, training, looking at that employee performance, but also some of that quality control and our safety, lending to workers, compensation and injury management. That's sort of me in a nutshell. So across all the business.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Melissa. And as I said, we wanted to talk to some different transport operations, and certainly one of the largest and iconic in Lindsay's, and touch on how technology and electronic workflows have helped the business, and where there are possibly some challenges. So, starting with the on-road side of that. How do you think the technology has helped reduce, or has it helped reduce the paperwork and bridge the gap between drivers on the road and the back office?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't be the only one saying it's been a long time coming with some of the technology and process improvements for the industry. There definitely has been improvements. I think just accessibility of how we communicate with drivers. It's not just mobile phones now that we've got safety devices that we can help manage and monitor fatigue, but also communicating with the sensible devices that we have, that you can actually interact with the drivers while they're on the road. So you're not just letting them rest break, you can actually provide them with additional information. So that extra level of interaction with drivers is a real positive. The challenge is that they're learning about this new technology, but they still have a lot of paperwork that they have to carry with them. Yep. So I think they feel a level of frustration that they're doubling up. So I think there's that frustration that they want to move forward, that it's one or the other.
Yeah. No, look, I think that would be common sentiment with a lot of people throughout the industry. We've certainly got the improvements, but there's still a couple of steps to go before we get all the way there. But that's interesting insights, and certainly what I think is one of the key benefits of having that in-cab device is that ability to keep in contact with the drivers and to facilitate the distribution of that critical safety information, whether it's a lesson learnt or I think current times, whether it be COVID or changes to safety things, or even back to the bushfires, to be able to communicate things. I think some really good points there. So we've talked about some of the frustrations the driver have, where it's not all the way there as yet. Aside from that, what do you get any comments or feedback? What are the benefits for the drivers? What do they talk about it positively in terms of the technology?
I think there's with anything new, it's I think not just our workforce out on the road. When there's any sort of new technology or systems change, there's that level of fear or conspiracy theory about Big Brother watching or a whole range of things. But once they get over that and that they can see the benefits of how it helps them do their job or gives them a bit more confidence. So even things with just from the counting of their hours and managing their driving hours, that has been, significant change and a real help for even some of our older workforce that bit traditional in how they've done things before. And it's just that extra guide, or it takes a bit of pressure off them. When you have to talk to a driver about their work diary fines for not calculating their hours correctly or missing a bit of information, that puts a lot of pressure on them of trying to manage that. So when you've got that extra tool that gives them a bit of support, it's made a big difference with the workforce.
No, that's great. And look, certainly as an ex-driver myself, I know I would have been a lot more confident pulling up a check stations if I had a tool like that, and was a little bit sure that my diary was in the proper order. So yeah, well, I suppose that leads to it. There's always that flip side. It does identify our exceptions in that in a proactive way. So, it might be a little bit out of your exact realm, but in terms of the compliance management, has that ability to proactively notify you of those breaches made a difference to how we sort of treat those, rather than the traditional lagging indicator and finding out about it after the fact?
Oh, for sure. I think, with anything with technology, it's how you use the information. So if you've got the information there, you need to use it, or if that data is important. But with any of our compliance systems, when you have access to that information, it does allow you to be more proactive. It allows you to engage with a quicker turnaround to drivers, to talk to them about what's happened or to understand why something has occurred.
Yeah.
So it's a good educational tool, whereas traditionally, you get the information, you've got to then wait for the driver to be available to come in and talk to them, and it could be, a period of time before you get to sit down and have that conversation or pick up the phone. So having more real-time information, you can act on it, you have a chat, and you move forward.
Yep. No, love it. No, that's great stuff. And I think, real demonstration of how you can effectively use the tool to get on top of those things, leading indicators before they become an incident or a breach. But so shifting gears a little bit to the back office, and certainly, over my years in compliance management and auditing, paperwork and the mountains of paperwork we all have, what effect has having the electronic system, and it mightn't have got all the way yet, but has it reduced the amount of physical records and archiving you've had to do?
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, it's not, quite there yet, but it's definitely in that transition stage, or there's levels of automation. So definitely has improved, just with streamlining information, centralising it in one spot. I think, so reducing that bit of paper, and I think one of the key things that, people can get stuck with, it's that whole, you can scan the information, you've got the records there, but people still want the paper-based. So it's that whole balance of having what your system or what your policy says of how you keep your data or how you retrieve it is key too. Like, it's making things electronic and accessible is that one step, but it's actually what have you got documented or how you manage that. That's a key, especially for audits or any checks. I think the other benefit of it being centralised is, especially in COVID, is having a remote workforce, so that you can actually, where people are based, it doesn't have to be in the one location, or you can allocate work to different locations because the information is available or the records are. And I think it's one of those things with COVID, it's forced people to do things quite quickly and work remotely. So we've proved that we can do it, and it's actually helped escalate that, we can actually do some of these things electronically and work returning, and it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's just talking on COVID, did you find you were able to update checklists or provide, COVID safety plans and guidance via the technology, and otherwise you would have been, updating driver folders or manuals and the like. But did it help during that period?
Oh, absolutely, especially in the early days when the border passes were changing so quickly. All the different rules between state borders varied. We found that really helpful, that we could actually just put blanket messages out to the staff. We could upload documents for them, or and because you'd have border updates happening when you've got a Queensland driver that's in South Australia and you're trying to get him across to Victoria and then to come home. So it's not like you can just get them in somewhere to give them the information. So being able to give them, like, the state COVID safe plans, what our business plans were, gave them a lot more confidence too when they were pulled up at the border, because then you've got emergency services, they're still learning too. So that whole side, I think it really helped understanding for both parties.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's great. That's fantastic. And I think a really good example of once these types of tools are part of your business and we're familiar with them and you know, we can use them to pivot to whatever that current risk is or that change, and it enables us to do that quickly and easily. And yeah, you know, coming back to that point you made about audit and compliance, it is one of those difficult challenges, you know, keeping everything in line. And as an auditor, I you know, it's one of the biggest gaps you see. People implement a great tool like this, but they don't go back and update the policies and procedures to reflect this great new tool. So come the audit time, the policies and procedures manual is still referring to Form ABC 123, and we now do that electronic. So yeah, that's a really good call to make sure that your policies and procedures reflect, you know, how you're actually, you know, conducting business. And, you know, I think there's still steps to go there. You know, my dream one day, hopefully we just provide an NHBR auditor a week login and they do it all online, you know, and that's, I think, the potential where we can get to, I think, into the future once both, you know, industry and regulators, you know, fully embrace the technology. All right, so I suppose, look, there've been some really good insights there, Melissa, and I suppose, you know, in you know, meeting that bigger chain of responsibility obligations and all of our requirements around HVNL when it does come to audit and you know, demonstrating that, whether it be at audit or at a particular, you know, incident or investigation, whether it's even a customer thing. How has the technology helped in those situations? Has it made it easier to present the case? You know, whatever that may be, but, you know, providing real data.
Yes, definitely. And I think as technology or different systems improve, the key is how things interact or how you can integrate information. Having that information available, it does definitely give you a level of comfort, but it also gives you a quicker snapshot. I think too that it's not, you're not relying on instinct or a gut feel about a certain situation. You've actually got different levels of information that you can check and correlate against each other to actually get the full picture. I think that's one thing that we've definitely found with the more technology that we have. You do get a true picture of something that, whereas traditionally you might not have actually got that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point. And look, the confidence, I think, look, most drivers and you know, as an ex-driver, I would have been in the office once or twice with a non-conformance. I have no doubt whatsoever. But you know, the thing I always point out to a driver, we're all human. We can all have a bad day. It's about remembering that the system recorded all that good stuff you did yesterday and the day before and the week before and the month before. So in the event that there is an incident or an exception, you know, it's showing all the good work you do as well. You know, everyone focuses on the negative and the exception, but yeah, you know, there's all that good work. It's recording all the good work we do, not only as an individual and as a business, but I think bigger as an industry. You know, the more technology that's out there, the more we can demonstrate the great work that we do.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with that. You know, the more that you can utilise and promote those analytics to get that full story, I think, you know, personally, I think there's, when there's more information available, people expect more information from you, which I think I think that's fine, but I think there's still that, you know, rules or guidelines that we probably do need to be cautious of, that just because people want information doesn't necessarily they mean it, you know. So it's not in, you know, response to a regulator or someone that's a formal situation, but I think it's easy that people then they think it's like social media. They want to have a say on everything, or they want to see all that information. And at the end of the day, you know, it's an employee, it's an individual, they've got privacy rights, and we have a responsibility to manage that. And I think it's just something that needs discussion, and as businesses, they have a responsibility to manage it, and as the industry to be aware of it. I think we get enough negative press as an industry that it's really important that we actually promote using this technology and safety and innovation for the positive of sides, not as a response for something when it goes wrong.
100%. Look, I couldn't agree more. That was well said, Melissa. And I think it's I think we're getting there. And you know, I love the idea of, you know, creating some sort of a standard for I suppose to give confidence to all of those other interested parties, whether they be regulators, customers, or the like, as to what the information means, so they can be confident to get the smallest critical KPIs and be satisfied with that, rather than, you know, I think, you know, certainly our changes to legislation a couple of years ago saw a lot of off-road parties and that overreach a little bit in that space and want, and look, pleasingly, you know, at least they were taking an interest and actually, you know, addressing that need. Possibly a little bit late in the piece, but yeah, certainly saw them overreach a little bit. So I think the technology, once it's understood, can give confidence to all parties in the supply chain and be able to communicate in a common language. I think that's a really good call, and you know, certainly something hopefully we can take up with the ITC and the technology and maintenance conference. Might be a good place to talk about it.
Yeah, well said. I think, you know, it is a challenge with the number of audits that you need to go through.
Yep.
And like you said, that it's not taking away someone's responding to changes in legislation. So this is and the steps that they're taking to make sure that, you know, they're engaging with safe suppliers that are compliant and committed to that. But it's when we're constantly reinventing the wheel and you're going through the same audit multiple times, it does take away from the practical side of actually making sure what we can do to improve, continuously improve or be safe our workforce. So there's that balance of, you know, passing a compliance audit doesn't necessarily make you safe. So I think it's that you can tick all the boxes, but it's what's behind that. So something that's nationally recognised, cost effective, saves time, gives people a level of confidence, and you back it up in practice.
Yeah, no, definitely. No, well, look, we really appreciate the chat, and thank you for your time, Melissa. And thanks again.
No worries, thanks, Shannon.
All right, welcome to another Teletrac Navman TMC 2020 live session. We're here with Julie Russell from Russell's Transport in Queensland, and we're going to have a talk through how technology and technology workflows can help a business and what effect that has from on the road to the back office. So firstly, thank you for joining us, Julie. And just for those that don't know, if you wouldn't mind, give us a bit of a background of Russell Transport.
Sure, thanks. Well, Russell Transport is a third-generation family business. We've been in operation for over 95 years. We run mainly out of Queensland, so we're based in Queensland. We can travel all over Australia. We do a variety of freight tasks in general haulage and heavy haulage. We do third-party logistic contract work. We do palletised goods, liquor distribution on the various Sunshine and Gold Coast networks, and just a number of container deliveries and movements off the wharf as well.
Yeah. So wide range of activities. All right. So focusing in on technology and how it's used in Russell Transport. How do you think technology and technology workflows have helped bridge the gap between drivers and on the road and help reduce that paperwork burden?
Well, from a burden of paperwork perspective, I would say it hasn't necessarily reduced it at this point in time, and that could be a symptom of us as a business and where we're at in our journey on the technology space. We still run a lot of dual systems. We will still have the operational paperwork as well as the device. And that is for a number of reasons. One is we have some failures in the devices, so that they aren't working in all the applications. The network coverage in different parts of Australia means they don't always work the way we need them to, or the battery life for some of the applications may not work. So there's some hardware issues we're working on. And the other side is not all our clients want the online system, so they still want the hard copy paperwork as well. So we may work for 5 different clients, 2 of which want the online system and the other 3 want the paperwork. So you need to still run with both in the interim. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's interesting comment. I think a lot of operators would probably find themselves in that situation, and it is probably a symptom of that wider supply chain needing to adopt and embrace, the benefits, so that we can all reap the rewards of that. All right, so there's still a few challenges for drivers. We haven't quite got rid of all the paperwork and the stuff out of the truck, but certainly there are some benefits for the drivers having that in-cab device. What are some of the benefits that your company's seen for drivers with having that in-cab device?
Sure. Some of the benefits for our drivers of having an in-cab device would be the increasing connectivity with their operations team and with each other. So being able to, when you're out on the road, I guess it can be quite lonely if you're on longer journeys. So having something that you can communicate, another means of communication, which can also be a visual communication and not just a verbal, I think is really great. And certainly in the times of COVID, I think everyone can appreciate now what it means to have that visual connectivity in your technology space. So as we advance in our use of our various devices, I think having something that creates a visual interaction where a supervisor can literally be talking to and seeing the driver when they've got an issue out on the road, rather than just talking to them on a two-way or a mobile phone. So it increases the connectivity. It also can support them in demonstrating the delivery itself. So being able to take a picture of the delivery, picture says 1,000 words. So that can offer some safety net for a driver to be able to explain where they've delivered something, where they've placed it, or what the condition of the goods were when they've dropped them off, to give a proper account. And a lot of our customers do like to see that evidence as well. So that sort of technology device does support that and help them.
No, that's interesting. Some great use cases for that type of technology, and I suppose the more we can get to embrace it, the more we can reduce that burden of paperwork. So, all right. So, lastly, on the road, obviously our in-vehicle technology, it helps us with those workflows, but it also helps us identify exceptions, in a proactive manner, rather than the traditional lagging indicators we've always had in the industry, checking paperwork after the fact. So that proactive identification of compliance issues, how has that helped the business in terms of managing those risks?
Well, using a technology device to manage a compliance system can actually give us more real-time data or quicker data than what we would if it was by paperwork. For example, we use devices to conduct Safe Act observations. We used to do it in paperwork form, and to manage all that paperwork and get it all back in, it took a while. And so we weren't getting real-time information of any trends that we were finding out in the workplace of either safe acts or unsafe acts that we might then target training with, or toolbox awareness sessions with, or anything like that, to give feedback to people. So it could take a few months before we cycled that all through and were able to extrapolate the information. Now when it goes straight into a technology device, it literally is pulled out of that spreadsheet, and we can start to map it and see where the trend lines are. And we can also expand what we're asking people to look at observations on. So we move beyond just, hey, could you check that they have their seatbelt on when they're in a forklift, or they're wearing their hard hat when they're working at heights, to really look at the method of application for dangerous goods, hazardous substances, manual tasks that they do. So there's a number of ways in which we can expand and provide supervisors, the safety reps, anyone who's using this device to be able to understand what they might look for in a safe act observation and then translate it back into what they've observed.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fantastic. So, yeah, obviously that real-time information is critical to be able to proactively manage those things. And do you use the device then to communicate, whether it be a safety alert or a toolbox talk? Does it provide you with that functionality to be able to then communicate the learnings from those types of observations?
We haven't yet been able to use it in that way. We've tried it. I think at the time when we were trying it, we weren't sophisticated enough in what we had available, but also I don't think we had the right selection of the tools that we needed to enable on our application to make it work. So it is very much a learning process. Some things work for us really well and others, they don't work at that point in time. We shelve it for a while, we enhance other parts of it, and then we bring it back in when we think we're ready.
And look, I think that's a really good point, and that operators need to be aware of that, whilst there is, usually baselines, technology solutions can be customised to a business and you can certainly grow into the solution as the business and the needs grow. And, I think that flexibility it provides to be able to, a year like 2020 where we started out with, finishing bushfires and then floods and then now obviously COVID, that ability to be able to update checklists or change things on the fly to manage those risks is obviously a great bit of flexibility that the tools can provide.
Yeah, Shannon, the other thing I would probably say on that is while we may not have been able to use a device in our vehicle, it didn't mean we still couldn't use a technology solution to communicate with our drivers. Yeah. More and more drivers, I'd say 99% of our drivers have an email address that have elected to receive company information on the email address. And we're taking them up on that offer or that ability for really pertinent stuff. So during COVID, safety alerts, out about COVID messaging, different safety precautions we needed from them, they were coming out fairly regularly to give them updates and keep them informed. And it was done via the email process. But in saying that, not everyone has an email in our business. There are still an older generation of workers that may not have an email address or may not choose to disclose it. So we still need a method to be able to deliver face-to-face where possible or via the phone or some other means. But that was an interim solution that we've been able to adopt.
No, and I think that's fantastic. And look, it does highlight, I suppose, the power of technology to be able to, bridge that gap in those situations. And as an industry, we probably, we have some old habits. So I'm sure there's probably still plenty of pigeonholes around in depots where drivers pick up the bulk of their information. So that's really impressive. And I think you've given us some good insights to how drivers can be helped by having the technology. So shifting gears a little bit now to in the office and what sort of benefits it can have in that back-end compliance management. Firstly, just, whilst we touched on there's still a fair bit of paper, has there been some benefit in terms of the electronic workflows in reducing that archiving burden of HV&L records?
There is still a burden on the HV&L records because we are all still on written work diaries as a business. But I do note that there has been an approval of an electronic work diary, in the last few days. So congratulations. That's very exciting. And it is something that by having confidence in a system that can do electronically, we can reduce the need to have the paperwork or have the drivers need to carry the work diaries. The more consistent you have of more operators and people using that system, I guess, then the more confidence drivers will have on using it and being able to access their records if they need to get their prior 3 years or 28 days, whatever they need to carry, all those various records that we need to keep. But just just starting the process is a really great initiative and excellent to be first to market.
Yeah.
But having it there is just like, you know, the start of a business starting their technology journey. There
Yeah.
may be some hiccups that might be slow to start to pick up, but once it gets that middle ground moving, it's going to take traction really quickly. And it's very exciting. So I think that will actually reduce some of the work diary records at least, which
Yep.
take up a big bulk of our archiving.
Yep.
And it takes a big bulk of our auditing process. So to put something online where you can have a lot of the systems in the background do that audit check and the hours for you, rather than having to rely on a human intervention, that saves us so much time. So that's a great initiative too.
Yeah, no, look, obviously very exciting, and it's probably that key paper record where, you know, that fills the majority of the archive boxes everyone's got hidden away in pallet racking somewhere. So yeah, look, very exciting, and yeah, we're certainly pleased to have an EWD and be able to provide that to market, and hopefully see businesses get the benefit of such a solution. So in terms of, you know, we touched on it there, I suppose, you know, the ease of not only our internal checking, but meeting our obligations under chain of responsibility in the heavy vehicle national law, and preparing and getting ready for audit. Have there been benefits in having the data, certainly parts of the data electronic, in terms of preparation for that type of stuff?
To a degree, yes, and in some instances, no. I still think having a complete record in one form is preferable, and when you have a mismatch of some on hard copy and some on soft copy, it can be difficult to manage in that audit process or checking process. So we would normally, if we were audited, we would normally revert to our hard copy records. But when I think it through, we have our vehicles, our maintenance of our vehicles, they're all captured on electronic records, and I rely on that system more heavily than the paperwork for my audit evidence, because it is so comprehensive. Everything is on it, and it is in where it's an advanced system, it's more mature, so we know what records are we looking for, so the way in which that it needs to be presented is probably more mature than what we are on some of our other records. So yeah, I do rely heavily on the system for that, for our maintenance, on our operational, where our timesheets are kept. We still have them, probably the timesheets and operational records are a mixed pair, so we probably rely more on the paperwork version of that than the electronic.
Yep. And look, I think there'd be plenty of operators in that same situation. As we said, look, hopefully the fact that we can have a paper EWD might be the catalyst to see some, you know, real thorough investigation into moving to more paperless systems. And look, one day, a dream I've often had as a, you know, an ex-NHVR auditor is that ability to be able to just log into a client, the data's there, examine the stuff, write the report, and that's it. That's what an NHVAS or TruckSafe or whatever appropriate audit should be, I believe, once we get the consistency and the recognition of a standard using the technology. It should make life a lot easier for a lot of people.
And I do find even with an audit process, if we take away from the audit process and look at it from a management process, having something more consistently online means I can understand my data. I can actually do more data analytics on it, and I get better reporting. So if I'm getting better reporting, it means my management meetings are a lot more productive and focused in the discussions, and we can target what areas are seeing trend lines of something happening very quickly and get strategies in place. So I think it actually it really does customize our conversations and focuses on the areas that we can action as a business before it gets to a point of being found in an audit as an issue.
Yep. And I think that's look, that's exactly what these types of solutions should assist people in doing, being able to proactively manage that, and look, ultimately better data, better decisions. That's the moral to the story at the end of the day. If we've got more visibility, we can, we've got better insight into the data. We can make better decisions, and that's really, I think, what's at the crux of it. If you embrace it for that, and you are hungry for that data and to use the system, it can certainly provide you with all the information you need.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? You can't manage. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Can't manage it.
That's important. But understand the con to having all this data is that it can be data overload. And how do you do the analytics on it? How do you interpret it? That is a struggle, I think, for any emerging transport company that is playing in that space of technology for the first time. It's what data is the right data to look at, and when is it the right data, and when is it now no longer, and it's a different set of data that you need to look at.
Yeah, and I think, look, certainly to educate not only on-road parties, but the off-road parties and supply chain parties to be able to interpret and recognise what is the good stuff, what is the bad, what is the minimum I can get to identify those critical KPIs. I think there's certainly a part, the industry has a part to play in framing and recognising that, and certainly through the technology and maintenance conference and the industry technical council, I think there's certainly some discussions that I'll certainly table and will hopefully take forward. So just to finish off, and because we've got you here, and to be able to provide some good advice to people that may be thinking about taking that step, maybe the announcement of an EWD has been what they've been waiting for to take the leap. Do you have any advice for a company implementing technology across, possibly multiple depots or fleets in terms of the change management involved and what's required to effectively, manage that process?
Yeah, sure. Based on my experience, I would strongly recommend anyone looking to implement a new a new technology advancement is to do it in smaller bits. So pilot management, do a pilot project on it. We rolled out with all devices in our vehicles all at the same time. And so the implementation of it was pretty lapse, I guess, because there was just too many vehicles to get it out across at one time. If I could have done it again, I would have gone back to using a smaller subgroup. And because our business operates in a number of different areas, I could have easily picked just one area to start with and rolled it out there, learnt my lessons in that area, done my change management plan with a smaller group of people, really focused on the implementation and the support that is needed on implementation, and then being able to expand it. And I would just probably also say that I've done a number of software implementations, both in the vehicles but also in the business, in our office, and the implementation process is the part of the piece that will either make or break the success of the system. If it doesn't have strong implementation and strong support throughout the implementation, whether that be from your partner, your software partner that you're going with, or your in-house change management team, that is the part that could end up causing you problems down further, because people won't accept the technology. It ends up failing because we haven't really understood how we can best use it, or you're getting data that you don't want to get and you're missing data that you should get because you didn't understand or you didn't quite get it right at the implementation point.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. Some fantastic advice, and I certainly reiterate to a lot of our customers, managing that implementation piece, making sure drivers recognise the value that it provides them in recording all the good stuff they do. Everyone focuses on that day we have a bad day and we have a little run off or something, but it'll capture that, but it also captured what you did yesterday, the day before, and so on, and enables you to prove that you've done the right thing.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The other point is if you're implementing and you're taking all the information away and then nobody sees what you're doing with that information, then people start to go, well, what is the point of me pressing this button on this device? I don't think it goes anywhere. I don't think it does anything. Therefore, I'll no longer press it. So sometimes actually coming back to people saying, well, thank you. What you've provided here, it's been able to help us understand the business in this way, or it's produced information about A, B, and C, and then people can see the value of that data. And a perfect example is when you're using your systems to look at your fuel consumption. So that sort of stats coming back and saying the fuel use in this vehicle is this percentage, and in this vehicle it's this percentage, people start to actually want to understand how are they doing this fuel burn, how does it work, and 1 month and they're trying the next month try to improve it. So they actually have some targets that they go for, and that's really valuable data. But if you keep it all to yourself, drivers won't realise that that's what matters. And also they're quite interested in it, and so it matters to them too. So that sort of information is great to feed back.
As drivers, we all want to be the gun. We all want to be number one. So yeah, you give them some data and some leaderboards, and yeah, you can often find some great competition that's driving your fuel costs down. So yeah, that's great advice too. Making the data visible so people can actually see and you know, often it's making it visible to the drivers or giving them the opportunity to have that input that makes the improvement to your system, that they see something that maybe we'd overlooked. So yeah, but having a wide audience is certainly you know, one of the best things you can do. But yeah, no, look, I really appreciate your time this afternoon, Julie. I think there's certainly been a lot of you know, good information and good advice for people that may be looking at it. So yeah, thank you for your time, and yeah, that's great.
My pleasure. I'd just probably leave with these parting words that I have gotten a ton of things wrong in the technology implementation space, but it doesn't mean you can't try again and keep going with it, because it's really important too. So yeah, you'll make mistakes, but that's okay. Keep trying.